Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of Atlantis, this gas truck. Scale is 1 to 48. In part 1 I just went through what was inside the box, and part 2 is going to see me beginning the build. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So as you can see there, I've primed them in the grey, my standard priming colour, and it's time to start putting it together. Now after having a more detailed look at the kit, I've noticed it doesn't come with the windscreen or side windows. So I'm going to be heavily weathering this little truck. Mostly because I don't want to scratch build or come up with a solution, as I should say, for the windscreen and side windows. It's possible. I do have the materials for it. I use little sheets of plastic for that, little clear sheets, or sometimes I use packaging, leftover packaging that has a clear filament. But this time, as I said, I'm just going to leave it off and I'm going to heavily weather this. So at the moment I'm just making up the engine block. The engine block itself is a fairly simple process, just the two halves placed together before the manifold goes on. The manifold was a little bit tricky because it goes underneath this line, I don't know what it's called, but it's a sort of bridge over the top of it. Must be some sort of holding bracket or something like that, or the carburetor. I'm not 100% sure, but it has to just slide on in the top, and of course I have to make sure I get it in the right position because there is two location points for the exhaust. The next part to go on is the fan belt. Now, I should point out as well, the instructions are not really that clear on where things go. So it's a lot of trial and error just to make sure everything fits. I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 08 matte black for the main part of the frame. And then it's Rebel Aquacolor 91 steel, and that's for the central part of the exhaust. I'm also using the same colour on the frame just to start putting in marks and weathering it up. So I'm starting the weathering process straight away as I paint. The engine block is getting painted in Rebel Aquacolor 09 anthracite. Not necessarily the right colour, but I do like this colour for engine blocks. It gives it a nice sort of flat finish to it, as well as looking slightly metallic. It's my go-to for this sort of type of material, meant for engines and bulky areas like that. Back to the exhaust, and it's 99 aluminium, and this is for the pipes running from the central part of the exhaust. And then moving on to Tamiya's X32 titanium silver. I'm using this to highlight areas on the engine. I'm also using it on the suspension leaves. Now, with this paint, I've mentioned it in other videos before, if you don't mix it properly, you get this real dirty sort of silvery metal colour, which is ideal for things like suspension springs and workable movable parts, which should be aluminium or steel, but you want them to be dirtier. It's just a form of weathering without actually putting in a lot of effort. It's a cheat as such. So now everything is dry, it's time to start assembling the main engine. So first of all, the exhaust goes in. The two location points are just at the top where the manifold is. But there's not a lot to this engine. Once the exhaust's on, that's the engine block built complete. Next I'm on to the wheels, and it's Rebel Aquacolor 31 Fiery Red for the centre part of the wheel. And for the reverse side of the wheel, it's Rebel Aquacolor 91 Steel. For the tyre, it's Life Colour Black Rubber Shades Tyre Black. Now the crucial thing here is, when I'm painting it, I want it to look a little bit messy for the weathering process. It's a new sort of technique I'm trying. Normally when I weather things, I paint them to a high standard, then start weathering them. This time I'm putting them on haphazardly to see how that goes. If it doesn't work out too well, I can always revisit it and repaint and get them to a pristine condition, or pristine as I like, before weathering them. So anyway, it's back to the engine. It's time to fit it onto the frame. There's only two location points here, one for the exhaust and one for the actual block itself. I'm using Revit Aquila 09 Anthracite once more for the axle of it. I should have said as well, this part is for the cab only. And of course I used the same colour on the front axle as well. I then switched over to Revit Aquila 08 Matte Black, and this is the part that's on the axle that connects to the main frame. Then I moved on to, then it's back to Revit Aquila 91 Steel, and this is for the drive shaft as well as the discs that hold in the wheel, so on the reverse side of the wheel that connects onto the axle. So it's back to the wheels and the assembly. The two halves just pushed together to form the double axle wheel. The front wheels are just a single wheel. So what I've got here is I've just got this little metal skewer that I'm placing the wheels on to paint the rest of the wheels in the tire black colour. And once that's done and dried, I'm just placing a piece of plasticine on one end to keep them stable. And then I'm going to be taking a rough file and I'm going to be filing down one side so it's flat. Now this is a little trick modelers use to show the weight of the vehicle, whether it's an aircraft or a car or anything like that, onto the tyres. Now depending on how far I decide to go with this, can also show you a flat tyre as well. But initially I'm just taking it down a little bit to show a bit of weight. I don't often do this, but because I'm going to be weathering this kit to such an extent, it's worth doing this little extra process. And now everything is dry, it's time to fit the remaining parts. So first of all is the rear axle, and that sits on top of the suspension leaves, and the drive shaft then goes into the engine block. Next is the front suspension. That goes over the suspension leaves, but the bracket also then sits on top of the engine to make everything nice and secure. And that's the basic makeup for the frame. So now it's time to put on the wheels, and they just push in. Don't really need any cement. I did put a little bit of cement on them anyway because I'm not having them free moving, but they can free move if you wish. The only thing I had to make sure here was that the filed off part is going to be facing towards the bottom, of course. And as I put the last wheels on, this will bring part 2 to an end. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and you'll be kept up to date with all my builds. Hit that like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.